Welcome to the Hope, Health, and Healing podcast. I am Michelle Hannah Fields, and I'm your host for episode 40, where I'm joined by my new friend, Kelly Lintz. Kelly knew early on that acting was in her heart. She had accepted Christ at a young age, and she carried a dream with her of becoming an actress. Over the years, that dream led to opportunities appearing in productions such as Army Wives, Stranger Things, and We're the Millers, among others. But as we're going to hear today, God rarely writes our stories in straight lines, and sometimes the journey takes unexpected turns and twists. During college, Kelly joined Campus Crusade, and upon graduation, she accepted a position with the organization and moved to Orlando. At the time, she had no idea that God was positioning her right in the middle of an environment connected to the world she would eventually step into. Next, Kelly's journey led her and her family to Atlanta, where they landed roles in the popular TV series The Walking Dead. She soon discovered that Atlanta had become an unexpected hub for the entertainment industry as well. When I asked how she navigated the entertainment world as a Christian, Kelly shared that she didn't feel called to preach at people. Instead, she chose to let her life, her actions, and the way she treated others reflect Christ's love. That commitment to her faith wasn't always easy. On more than one occasion, both Kelly and her children were offered roles that conflicted with their values. And even though accepting those roles would open doors and advance their careers, they made the difficult decision to walk away, choosing obedience and faithfulness to their values and God over opportunity. Now Kelly's children are grown and beginning families of their own, and God has transitioned Kelly and her husband into a new season in Auburn, Alabama. Today, she is stepping into another creative chapter, writing a screenplay inspired by the true story of a friend whose baby was born with Down syndrome. During our conversation, Kelly shares the heart behind the storyline and the powerful message woven throughout it. She also extends an invitation to those in the Auburn, Opelika, and Phoenix City, Alabama areas, as well as Columbus, Georgia, to become part of bringing this story to life. She is currently looking for sponsors, volunteers, churches willing to host lunches and meals for the cast and crew, and individuals interested in serving in additional roles, including crowd scenes and background parts. So sit back, relax with your favorite cup of coffee or beverage of your choice, and join me as we hear Kelly's incredible story of faith, obedience, and the unexpected ways God weaves purpose into our lives. All right, well, today I'm joined by Kelly Lintz, and I just recently met you through a friend of mine that you have connections with, and just super excited to have you on today just to hear your story of faith, what God's brought you through, and then also what's on the horizon for you and what you're currently building.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah. So if you will, just start a little bit about where your journey of faith began and what that looked like for you in the beginning.
Sure. So I became a believer when I was 4 years old. I was actually the first person in my family to do so. My mom was a single mom. She sent me to a private Christian school because she figured it was cheaper than daycare, and she figured a little Bible couldn't hurt. And my kindergarten teacher actually was the first person I ever heard the words God or Jesus from. And then my parents would soon follow after me. My mom would marry someone, and they both became believers. And then from then on, I grew up in what I would call a traditional Christian home. Went to church on Wednesday and Sunday, graduated from a private Christian school that I had gone to all the way through. And at the same time, from a very early age, I knew that I was destined for the stage. I had a spiritual experience in a church play, and that was it. Yeah. And so the majority of my life was spent preparing for that hopeful eventuality, with a career on, what I hoped was Broadway. New York. And I was really irritating about it. And my parents had no idea what to do with me. And so they sent me to Penn State to study acting.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. What now? When you were in middle school or high school, did you do school plays as well? Did they have that there?
Oh yeah, I was the annoying person that was doing like the school play during the day, and then at night I would go, rehearse the community theater play, and either that or I was in dance lessons or singing lessons or piano lessons. It really was. It kept me out of trouble, so it was a good thing.
Right.
But it probably did become, kind of an idol in my life. And then when I went to Penn State, which was a foolish waste of money if you want to become an actor, but the good thing about that is that I got involved with a student ministry there called Campus Crusade for Christ, and now they go by Cru. And that's where I really learned to make my faith my own as an adult and turn my life, my hopes, my dreams, my talents over to his lordship. And there was a turning point for me when I was a senior, and the Holy Spirit began to whisper to me, like, we're not going to be going to New York. And I said, well, where are we going? And he said, you're gonna go into full-time ministry with Campus Crusade. And I was like, that doesn't sound like the plan at all. But how the Holy Spirit will whisper to you until you just know that if you don't obey, you're not going to be in the center of his will, and you won't be at peace. And so while all of my friends from drama school headed north to New York, I headed in the opposite direction and went south to work in the international headquarters of Campus Crusade. And it really did feel like I had sacrificed Isaac while being banished to a wilderness of desks. And I thought that, my hopes and dreams were over, really, but that is not how it turned out.
Yeah. How long were you there?
So I was on staff with Campus Crusade for 5 years. And what happened is that while I was there, I became friends with sort of a local group of artists, because we will always find one another.
Right.
And they were company members of the Orlando Shakespeare Festival. And I saw that they were also doing commercials and playing bit parts on television series that shot on the back lot of Universal Studios. And as it turned out, Central Florida was a pretty solid regional hub for film and television. And because nobody, when they leave drama school, is like, I better head to Florida, the talent pool is pretty small.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get an agent very quickly, not long after I arrived, and start, doing national commercials for everything from Advil to Zyrtec. At the same time, being on staff with Campus Crusade, they were kind of cool about it.
Yeah.
And all of my friends that had gone to New York started calling me saying, like, what is going on? We just saw you in like a Super Bowl commercial. Like, we thought you joined a cult. And what happened was God had walked me into the best back door into the industry that none of them knew about. And to my knowledge, they all kind of quit and went home because it's a tough biz. And I'm the only one that would go on to have a career in the industry.
Wow. That's amazing. And, it really does say a lot for just your surrender and obeying what the Holy Spirit was leading you to do, and how God used that in a powerful way to give you the desire of your heart. And I think that's a very good lesson for all of us, that it's obedience first. And the Bible says obedience is better than sacrifice.
Yeah.
And in your obedience, God blessed you and fulfilled that longing in your heart for an acting career.
Yeah, and, I made a vow that I would never again question his navigation system. And this would be a repeated cycle in my life moving forward. And so he would test me on that several times, usually involving a physical move to a new location, which is what he then did 10 years later he called my husband and I to move to Atlanta. And at this time, it didn't make sense because all of my friends that were actors, the next logical step was LA. You know, that's where you could find greater fame and fortune. And I just knew he didn't want me to go there. And Atlanta also didn't make sense, though, because I was going to have to start all over with, you know, finding new representation and breaking my way into new casting offices. And I was doing really well in Florida. And God said, you know, do we really need to have this conversation again? I said, no, okay. So we moved to Atlanta. And this time, I would have 4 children by this time. They all followed me into the industry. And over the next 2 decades, we would be on the ground floor of everything that Atlanta would become as it relates to the entertainment industry, which is the largest regional hub of film and television in North America. And that happened slowly over the next 2 decades. But, you know, we were there when a little show called The Walking Dead came to town, and 3 of my children would go on to star on it. And I would start landing my first recurring roles on shows like Surface and Army Wives and One Tree Hill, and you know, getting to, you know, play opposite Jen Garner in films. And my kids would go on to star on shows like Under the Dome and Bosch and Ms. Marvel, and it was all because we were you know, got our start in Atlanta. So
yeah, that's awesome. And you know what I love is that God uniquely positioned you, not just for you, but for your family too, to have that career. What did it look like when you're in the middle of filming and in these roles as a Christian? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, being a Christian in Hollywood is not necessarily the popular choice. That's for sure. So I would say that, you know, it was not like we were going on to sets with, you know, a sandwich board saying the end is near. We really tried to walk the walk by being people of integrity, doing our jobs with excellence. But more than that, we really placed a lot of importance on making people feel seen, heard, and valued that otherwise wouldn't be, because there's a definite hierarchy on a film set. You have the, you know, the executive producers at the top and maybe the A-list actors, and then, you know, it goes all the way down to, you know, the lowest production assistant, and then lower than that is the stage parents, which you're really just there to make sure your child actor shows up, and then they really don't want to see you or hear from you. And so I got a real taste of that being at different locations on that totem pole, because one day I'd go on set and be an actor and be treated like I was the most important person in the room. And the next day I'd go on set and I'd be the same person and be treated like I really had nothing much of value to offer. And that was jarring. And I began to realize, wow, I hope I never make anybody feel that way. And so I used to teach my kids, like, when we go on a film set, because, you know, actors, we love to talk about ourselves, and then we prefer it when others talk about us too. That's just kind of the Achilles heel. And I said, no, we can't be like that. So I would make my kids go out and find, you know, a crew member that they hadn't talked to and ask them questions about them and report back on what they learned. And, you know, just trying to make people feel seen and heard. And I know that it had an impact. It's because of some other things that happened later on, but you never know when you're doing it, you know. But then it does give you the right, when you become somebody worth talking to, you have the right to speak when spoken to. You have developed that relational equity. So there were quite a few times on set where I would have deeper conversations with people about faith when it was appropriate, when it was, you know, the right time and the right place. And that was interesting. And then I guess the other way that it really played out is, you know, what kinds of roles were we willing to do and weren't willing to do. And we were tested on that on many occasions. one time even walking away 3 times from an Oscar-winning director because of what they wanted our 12-year-old daughter to do. And we just couldn't do it. But, I act like it was easy to do. But I literally was, on my face begging God to not let me sell out my daughter, because the industry is so difficult. You audition 50 times and get 1 yes and 49 no's. So when you walk away from an opportunity like that, you really do feel like, you're never going to get that opportunity again. And it requires a lot of faith and trust. And now, of course, I don't regret it at all. But in the moment, it's not easy. But then, I would say it's difficult to do much more than that in a respectful way when you're navigating the industry. And so one of the things that I've long wanted to do is begin to use, move from in front of the camera to behind it, to tell some stories of my own, that initiate or reinitiate someone's conversation with their creator, almost without them knowing what I'm up to until it's done. Because, there's this massive dichotomy between what Hollywood's putting out, which is fantastic production value, great stories, if you can get past the fact that, it's porn, or the agenda they're trying to put over that is leading people away from God's best design for us. And on the other hand, you have, what the faith-based world is putting out, which valiant effort, but also filled with agenda. And I don't think agenda ever works with the human brain. I think as believers, when it comes to storytelling, we got to get a little bit better at subterfuge. If we're at war for the hearts and minds of humanity, we got to get a little bit better about going undercover with our messaging.
Yeah. You can't, in this day and age, you can't be what used to be called a Bible thumper, and just hitting people over the head with what's right and what's wrong. I think, to your point, saying how you navigated just relationships, making people feel seen, valued, understood, heard, and that's universal. And I think, people long to have that. And Christ even said, people will know you're my disciples when they see that you love one another. And so when you allow Christ's love to emanate from you, that's the best witness that you can have, is showing them that love, that respect, and, letting them see their value and helping them to navigate through that. So I love that y'all were that on the set. And I think probably you will never know the number of lives you touched by doing that. You may never know the profound impact you had just because of how you related to people, how you helped them be valued and feel like they were valued.
Yeah, people won't remember so much what you say as much as they will how you made them feel.
Right.
And but at some point, I want to be, and I think too on social media, I'm pretty bold with my faith. So those that got to know us one way would get to know who we are another way. Right.
And you'll have those opportunities to really share your faith, as people, as you show them value and hear them, it builds trust and rapport.
Yeah.
And then with that trust, then you are able to more openly open up and let them see why you are the way you are.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Now, are you still active in the industry now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, 2 of my children escaped the industry, and one of them is a college student at Auburn, my youngest, and my oldest is now an attorney. But they all worked all the way up through. My middle 2 are still very much pursuing the dream. My my daughter finished a 10-year stint on a show for Amazon called Bosch that she basically grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
And my son recently starred in a show called Ms. Marvel. So now they're back to pounding the pavement like the rest of us, trying to get their next job. And then most recently, I did a few episodes of the final season of Stranger Things.
Okay.
But the thing we're working on mostly right now is producing our first feature film, which is my first attempt at persuading people to do things God's way because it's best for them. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because God loves us and has what's best for us in mind. And this film is about a mom who gives birth to a baby with Down syndrome and then moves heaven and earth to help her redefine what's possible for someone with a disability. And it's based on a true story about the Kosmolsky family out of Middletown, Delaware, and their daughter Kayla. Could read at 4. She kept up with the traditional classroom, graduated with honors, was a varsity cheerleader, and gained 17 university acceptances with hundreds of thousands of dollars of scholarship offers. She's now a college cheerleader, and as if that's not enough, she made history by becoming the first teen with Down syndrome to win a state pageant title. So she served as Miss Delaware Teen USA 2024. She did that after I finished writing the movie about her. So I was like, listen, that's the sequel.
Yeah.
And then her family has also changed 9 laws that positively impact the differently abled. And so we touch on that in the film too. And really it's just a movie that illustrates what families go through seeking inclusion for their children educationally, socially, and legally. And it's a love letter to parents. I want them to leave feeling seen, heard, celebrated, validated. And then I want people that are not involved with that community to realize that this diagnosis is not something to mourn, but actually something to celebrate, and that studies show that families that raise children with Down syndrome tend to be happier and more fulfilled, which is not the messaging they get when they get the diagnosis.
That's right. And a lot of people that I know that have Down syndrome children, they were told before the baby was born what the diagnosis was and encouraged to abort the baby.
Yeah. 60 to 80% of all prenatally diagnosed fetuses are terminated, and that's tragic. In some countries, it's 100%. That's tragic enough, but when you consider the fact that I know quite a few women who got the diagnosis prenatally and then went on to have a baby that didn't have Down syndrome.
Right.
So, even if the test is 99% accurate, 1%, that's a whole lot of babies that are terminated based on false test results. Can you imagine?
Yeah. I can't. That's unfathomable.
Yeah.
Just to think about.
So we want a young woman who's either gotten the diagnosis or maybe she's 16 and she will to see this and be like, wow, they look happier than my family. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And to realize that diagnosis, the prenatal diagnosis, is not indicative of what their future will look like.
Right.
It can be just as functional, if not more so, than a, quote, normal baby.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the first laws that they passed, and we do cover this in the movie, is something called the Fair Information Act, which requires doctors to share both sides when they get the diagnosis, to share all of the resources that are going to be available to them, to share with them the truth about the studies that have been done, and to not just paint this picture of doom and gloom.
Right. And I think that's a great, law that was passed to do that, to provide that information.
Yeah, and we want this film to paint the same picture. That's the goal.
What have you learned in this process?
Oh my goodness.
There's probably not enough time to answer that.
Nothing nothing in my life has required the amount of grit, perseverance, and faith, just literally acting on blind faith as this process. And the only thing that keeps me going is that I'm 100% certain that this was a mandated assignment given to me that the last 3 decades, maybe longer than that, have prepared me for. And it began in January of 2022 when God, I'd seen this dichotomy between what Hollywood was putting out and what the faith-based world was putting out. And I kept saying, why doesn't anybody come right down the middle and tell some really high quality, great stories that influence people the other way? And in 2022, God said, well, quit whining and start becoming a solution to that problem. And I've always been a writer, too. I had never written a screenplay. And so I said, well, that mission outsizes my skill set currently, because I knew writing a screenplay would be difficult. So I went back to school to make sure that I did it as well as I could. But getting it made as an independent filmmaker was a whole other animal, a whole other mountain to climb. And I said, if you really want me to do this, you're going to have to connect me to the people that can help me get it done. And so in January of 2022, I was sort of fasting and praying over this. And he said 2 things: start writing and get your house ready to sell. And I'm like, now where are we going? Because at that point, after 21 years in Atlanta, I thought Atlanta was end game. It was perfect for what we were doing. The market there was booming. Why would we go anywhere else? And he said, I'm really so annoyed that you keep asking that question that I'm not even going to tell you. Just get your house ready to sell. I'm like, okay. So every morning I would write. Every afternoon I would, clean out a drawer or a closet. And then at night I would get on my knees and say, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to connect me to the people that can get it done. So 1 year later, God would very clearly say, all right, I'm ready to tell you where you're going. You need to pack up and sell everything you have and move to Auburn, Alabama. Now, aside from the fact that my husband on our first date talked about 3 things and 3 things only, which was Auburn football, and how being a plainsman on the Auburn football field had been the highlight of his life. And aside from the fact that at birth he had sort of baptized all of our children into the cult, and the running joke in our family was when we moved to Auburn, it made less sense than anything we'd ever been told to do. But we did want to downsize financially so that we could focus on producing. And so, all right, I guess we'll downsize to Auburn, and my husband will be happy and occupied, and I will start developing the funding that we need to make this movie. And over the last 18 months, Auburn and Opelika, and really all of East Alabama, have made it clear that this is not just my project and it's not just my vision, but it's their mission too. And we've raised over $500,000 in actual dollars. A good portion of that comes from people that live in Auburn and Opelika, whether they're investors or whether they've made donations to our crowd fund. We've raised another probably $150,000 in-kind donations of things like housing, food for cast and crew. The only reason I will get this done is not because of some slick producer or Netflix, which is what I thought might be the answer to my prayer. It is because of hundreds of individuals and businesses that have become sponsors of this project. It's because of the people in those 2 towns. And now it's branching out to people here in Phoenix City and Columbus saying, we just got a business sponsor yesterday from here. Wow. And they're like, what about us? We want to help make this happen. And I'm like, great, we won't discriminate. And we have an event coming up in Andalusia, Alabama, and another one in Birmingham. And so all of East Alabama is really catching wind of it and getting involved. And to me, it's hilarious. Like the way God says, I'm not going to do it the normal way. I'm going to do it in a way where you know that it had to be me. So
yeah, and he loves to do that. He loves to get us out of the way so that he can shine and just really show us, like, if you'll just step aside, I'll do it, and I've got everything already lined up. We just have to have that faith to take that step to do the next thing he shows us. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, but it was really terrifying back in the beginning when I had just enough money raised to lock myself in, like where we had come too far to turn back, but we had so far to go that I was like, I don't see how we're going to do this. And then the other thing that we did very early is we started our social media channel, because a lot of independent filmmakers, what they do is they forget, they're so focused on finding the money that they forget to find their audience. And so their movie might be great, but nobody ever sees it. And we didn't want that to happen. So
what's your social media page?
At Able Movie on Instagram.
Able Movie. Okay.
Yeah, and we have TikTok as well. We're focusing right now on Instagram. Later on, once we're in production, we'll probably that's how it's done these days. Like, so much is marketed via TikTok and Instagram. And so we're not going to be any different from that. But going public on that Instagram channel, which, every single day I get on there and say, well, this is what happened today. And maybe it was just one tiny little baby step. But, you're putting yourself out there publicly. And so if you fail, everybody's going to see it. Yeah. And there were some nights where I stared at the ceiling for a minute and panicked. But it's turned out to be our superpower. Yeah. Because we've been able to establish consistency and credibility and momentum and excitement. And there's a lot of people that I know have jumped on board because they have been watching.
And it gives you accountability.
Right.
Huge accountability.
Oh, my goodness. Like, there's no, I'll have to die.
Yeah.
to not make this movie. Yeah. It will have to be catastrophic.
Yeah. And so I love that, and we'll put a link in the show notes to your page.
People can learn more at ablemovie.com as well.
Yeah, we'll put that link in there too. Now, I know that you are making plans for filming. When will you begin filming?
So right now, our goal is early 2027, like first quarter 2027, and mainly that's because we have so much we could probably go before then, but we have so much donated housing in the Auburn Opelika area for cast and crew that we're not gonna be filming in football season, right? And then you get into Christmas, and so our first quarter 2027. That's when it's a little quieter, and people are willing to donate those spaces and.
Okay, good. Now, how can people get involved before then to kind of help push this project along?
Yeah. So the easiest thing to do, the simplest, and it's free, is follow us on social media. Follow us at Able Movie. The second way they can get involved is if you live in East Alabama, in Auburn, Opelika, Columbus, Montgomery, or anywhere in this vicinity, is to volunteer. So we're looking for volunteers in two main areas. One is we need background actors. We need people that are willing to come in and volunteer a half a day of their time to walk up and down a street or sit and pretend to drink coffee. So if you've ever wanted to be in a movie, now is your chance. And the second way is, a lot of restaurants have offered to sponsor meals, but we imagine the rest of the catering being filled out with, kind of like a good old-fashioned Southern wedding where I'll bring the potato salad on day 5, So you can sign up to volunteer and make a pan of brownies or whatever it is that you do. That would be awesome. And you can do all of that at our website at ablemovie or ablemovie.com. And then finally is to give. If you're looking, if you're an individual and you just would like a tax write-off, you can head to our website. All gifts to our crowdfund are tax deductible. And then the other thing is if you have a business, we have over 100 businesses in East Alabama that have become sponsors of the film. And there's fun perks that go along that, anything from your name on the back of our crew T-shirt to credit in the movie. So those are probably the best ways to get involved with us and help us get this done.
Okay, great. Now, do you have any events coming up that will be open to the public or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say that the best thing to do is to reach out to us on our social media. We're doing events all over Auburn, all over East Alabama that we're calling Able Sip and Supports. Okay. And this is just people invite 20 or 30 of their friends over. I come and share what we're doing and how they can get involved, and then they do. And they have raised a lot of money. And so we have one in Andalusia on the 28th. We have another one in Auburn on June 11th. But people are scheduling these all the time. And so people can come to those. We don't have any... we did in March do the Auburn Mahjong Club did a Mahjong tournament for us that raised $34,000 in one night. Wow. Who knew?
Yeah.
I don't even play. Maybe I should. And we did a golf tournament that raised $40,000. So our big community-wide events, there's nothing yet scheduled, nothing else. Because now we've got to get to actually going into pre-production and making this movie. But we're still not quite to the funding finish line. We're just working on faith that we will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, any other parting things that you would like to share on your journey or on the movie or anything else that's on your heart?
I mean, I would just say that nothing in your life is wasted. Every time God would take me on bizarre detours, I would learn something that is serving me really well right now, that I wouldn't be able to get this project done without that particular piece of knowledge that at the time I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so I would just really, if you're struggling with direction in your life, or if you have a dream, just hand it over to the Lord and trust his GPS, because it'll usually tell you to go north when you think you should go south, but it's just never wrong.
Yeah, that's so good and so true. I love that. And that's part of one of the things that I say and that I have shared for years is no part of your story is wasted. Like God uses every part of your story. And even in those moments when you feel like, man, I just failed right here, God's like, it's fine. I'm going to use that too. And he uses everything. He doesn't waste anything you go through, nothing, no part of your life. He uses everything for his glory.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I do have 3 questions I like to ask all my guests.
Okay.
These are easy. So, are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker or neither?
Would you believe until January of this year, I was a tea only. Did not understand coffee.
Yeah.
And this January, and like every couple of years or so, I would try coffee to see if I'd become like a big girl yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. All of a sudden, this January, I got it. So now I'm both.
Okay, awesome. How do you take your coffee?
I mean, I need a little cream in mine. Cream and sugar for sure. Yeah.
All right, good deal. If you could go anywhere in the world on a dream vacation, where would that be?
Dream vacation? I'm not really a lay around and do nothing kind of gal. I love educational trips. So, I mean, Israel's is on my bucket list for sure.
Mine too.
Yeah.
That's one of the top. Greece also.
Greece would be cool. Yeah, Israel, and who knows if we'll ever be able to go to Israel. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's a vacation. I've always also wanted to go to Scotland.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like
Me too.
look at all the castles and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too. My brother's actually been there for work.
yeah.
So
We lived in Budapest, Hungary once for 7 months working on a show there. And so
Okay.
we got to, zip around and see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Rome, and drove to Poland one day and went to visit Auschwitz and Krakow, Poland. And that was pretty cool. So
yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, my brother did all that in his job. He went all over Europe and Eastern Asia, a little bit of Scotland and Ireland too. So I lived vicariously through his pictures.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the third question, and this is our last one. If you could only have one verse of the Bible, one scripture, what would that scripture be?
I don't know if this is the only one I would want, but it is the one I pray often over this particular project, as I do battle over it in prayer, which has taken more battle in prayer than anything I've ever done. And that is, it is time for you to act, Lord. Your laws are being broken. And because I love your law more than gold, more than pure gold, and because I consider all your precepts right, I hate every wrong path. And I feel like the amount of fetuses terminated is truly modern day child sacrifice. And he is not happy about it. And it's time for him to act.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing, and we will definitely put the links in there to how people can reach you and follow you on social and help. So looking forward to when you are starting to film and get the movie out, and I can't wait till it's post-production and we're celebrating.
Oh, man, me too. But we need every single person watching to say yes to the Able invitation in one of the 3 ways, or all 3 that I mentioned, to get it done.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
As we wrap up today's conversation with Kelly, I hope you're reminded that God often uses the unexpected turns, delays, and even the difficult decisions in our lives to shape something greater than we can see in the moment. Next time on Hope, Health, and Healing, I'll be sitting down with Stephanie Suber as she shares her powerful journey of faith, healing, and purpose. Stephanie's story is one of perseverance, hope, and discovering how God can bring beauty and meaning from places we never would have chosen ourselves. You don't want to miss this inspiring conversation. Until next time, keep choosing hope, pursue health in every area of your life, and remember that healing often begins one step of faith at a time. Be sure to like, comment, and share this podcast episode with your friends and family, and we'll see you here next time. Thanks for listening and have a great day.